This past week, Democrat Tina Kotek was sworn in as the state's 39th governor. During her inaugural speech on Monday, she spoke about what Oregonians expect from their government.
Oregonians in every single corner of our state are demanding better. They want to see the idea of Oregon, land of majestic mountains, land of promise, match up with the realities in their everyday lives. And so do I.
On her first full day in office on Tuesday, Governor Kotek addressed one of the biggest challenges facing this state.
I am signing 3 executive orders aimed at tackling the state's housing and homelessness crisis.
She set a goal of adding 36,000 housing units per year, and she's creating an advisory council to help make that happen. She also declared a homeless and housing state of emergency in Oregon. She directed state agencies to prioritize reducing both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness in all areas of the state. And to get that ball rolling, Governor Kotek is asking the Oregon legislature for $130 million. I went to the state capitol on Tuesday to ask her directly about her plans. Governor, let's talk about, there's a lot in this, obviously. A little bit of the teeth involved here for folks at home, and when we'll actually start to see progress?
That's a great question. So in the state of emergency as it relates to unsheltered homelessness, I would point out the key issue right at the beginning there, setting up a incident command structure, an emergency management structure similar to what we do when there's a natural disaster. And this is a man-made disaster. This is a humanitarian crisis. So setting up that framework that local government's very familiar with, bringing an interagency approach and collaboration from the state to work with our local partners. So not only technical assistance and leadership, but also resources. We all have to work together in a new framework if we're going to make progress. As I mentioned in my speech yesterday, there are good things happening on the ground today. And we need more solutions, we need more urgency. And that executive order talks about creating that emergency management structure, which I think is a new tool to the issue right now.
Do you expect bipartisan support on your budget when it comes to homelessness and everything you've got planned here?
What I have heard uniformly, both from our Democratic leaders and our Republican leaders, is an interest in housing and homelessness. It's affecting all corners of the state. And this initial investment will be really focusing on those places who have seen significant increased unsheltered homelessness. But the order as it relates to the state, and we haven't talked about that much, we as a state and our state agencies have to prioritize this issue. Every agency is going to be put on notice that this is part of your mission as well. Dealing with housing and homelessness, making sure there are no barriers to communities getting the help they need. This isn't a partisan issue. And that I'm, in my conversations with the Republican leaders, they know this is a challenge. And we have to put as much as we can together towards the problem. That's what we are going to do during the session.
There's 2 major actions she says she'll start taking tomorrow on her first day in office. The first one will be to sign an executive order calling for 36,000 new homes to be built in Oregon per year. The second one will, of course, be the long-awaited, promise that she made during her campaign to address the homeless issue through a state of emergency. Across Oregon, a growing number of homeless residents and inflated costs of living are creating a crisis that Oregon's new governor, Tina Kotek, promises to help solve.
We won't be perfect, but we will improve every year. So Oregonians can proudly say their state government was there for them.
She says she'll start on her first day in office by declaring a state of emergency on homelessness.
Our state's response must meet the urgency of the humanitarian crisis we are facing. A lot of good work is already underway in communities across our state, and thank you for that.
Kotek says she'll encourage Oregon lawmakers to set aside $130 million to increase homeless services. Also starting tomorrow, she promises to increase the state's housing inventory.
An ambitious statewide housing production target of more than 36,000 new homes per year. And people, that's an 80% increase over recent construction trends. Building more housing is key to creating healthier and safer communities.
There's going to be more people out on the street, more people homeless, and I'm going to be one of them. Across Oregon, families are already struggling to keep up with the cost of living amid record inflation. Now, rent is increasing for a lot of people, and this year, Oregon's allowable rent increases almost 15%.
K2's Christina Giardinelli talked to families across the state who say they cannot cover it. She's live now in Salem. Christina, what are those families saying?
Yeah, I talked to two families, one in Redmond, one in Gresham, both on fixed incomes. They say they never imagined spending their retirement pinching pennies. Leland Hiller worked as a maintenance technician until heart problems forced him to take an early retirement. Now he's supporting a family of three on a fixed income in Gresham.
Domestic partners for over 20 years. We have a 16-year-old son.
He says, like many, they've been struggling to keep up with the cost of inflation. Now, rent's going up by $200. Oregon allows for an increase of 9% each year, plus the cost of inflation. This year, that brings the allowable increase to almost 15%.
What am I going to do the rest of my life if I can't support my family, which breaks my heart? Especially after all the years I've worked and stuff. It's really hard out there.
Leland's partner, Connie McCowan, says they tried to get help, but rent assistance is running low and only available for people who already face an eviction.
But right now it just seems like there's nothing being offered. You know, as soon as the COVID thing is over with, there's just absolutely nothing.
Oregon has an estimated population of about 4.2 million. About 40% are renters and could face similar increases. The problem is not just in the metro area. Richard and Edith Fondren in Redmond are also on fixed incomes and facing a rent spike.
We're going to have more seniors out on the street living in tents or in sleeping bags or their car.
He tells me this is not the way he'd imagined spending his golden years.
We've been together for over 30 years now. And if it wasn't for each of us supporting the other and holding that hand, I really don't think I could face the world.
I posted their stories on Twitter, and since doing that, I've received responses from many other renters in the same boat. Today, I also talked to Sybil Hepp with the Oregon Law Center about some of the initiatives Oregon lawmakers are working on to try and help families like Richard and Connie and the Fondrens.
Our bill proposal is designed to make sure that rent increases are reasonable. We understand that rent increases are a part of landlords doing business, but we want to make sure that those increases are reasonable.
The bill proposes dropping the increase from 9% to 3%, plus the annual cost of inflation. Other measures propose increasing rent assistance fund so families can get help before facing an eviction.